Okay, so hello everyone. It should take a couple moments to update on YouTube. But
Mhm.
it looks like we're live. Pretty great. But thank you guys so much for coming to Addicted to Audiobook Club. We have one of my favorite authors here today on my channel. We have the one, the only GT Geissinger. If you haven't read any of her books, like you need to remedy that because even the audios, I'm like, even your audios are fantastic. Your writing's fantastic. Your books are fantastic. The steam, the characters, it's all fantastic. And
Let's stop it some more.
I absolutely love. Like I trust anything that you will write. You could write
Wow.
anything. Even
Okay.
the Queens of Monsters, I was like, I have some ideas I want to pitch you, JT, but I was like,
Oh, tell me.
I feel like I'm going a little crazy overboard.
Yeah. Well, I like to hear all that. I love the enthusiasm. Thank you so much for having me. This is fun. Thank you. I'm flattered.
Thank you. And also, I'm joined by my lovely co-host Taji from Taji's World of Books as
Hi,
well.
Taji.
And if you haven't read the Queens and Monsters series up to book 3, I'm sorry, we're going to spoil it because I
Spoilers ahead.
absolutely adore this series. Sloan
Yes.
could like kill me and bury me, and I would still be happy.
She would probably do
She's
that.
amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's a fun character, isn't she? She's also appearing in the 4th book, Brutal Vows. So you'll see a little bit more of her too. Yeah, and Declan.
I would think so. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for it. I can't wait to get his book.
Yeah,
When I found
the book right now. Actually, this week it'll go to the editor, and I might release it early because everybody is kind of screaming at me to get it out. So I think I might push it out a little bit early.
once I found out who the hero was, I was like, you better burn the world. I was like, I know you loved Riley, but I was like, you go bad. You're a good dude. Just go bad for once. I was like,
Yeah.
here's to you. And don't kill
He
Stavros.
tries to go bad. My guys always have they always have these horrible backstories, and I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who, hasn't read the first couple of books, but yeah, Spider is very intense, as all the guys are in this series, and you'll find out a lot of interesting things about him. And the trope in this book is enemies to lovers, obviously, an arranged marriage, but it's not at all going to shake out how you think it is, which I love to do. So.
I love plot twists. I like going down this way.
It's twisty.
I love it. Like the way like you connected how the heroes don't necessarily change, but they change almost for their women.
Just for her.
I love like Cage is like still plotting in the background.
Yeah.
I was like, Cage, I know you did not send Malik after to kill Declan. Like, how dare you?
Yes, he did.
Sloan and Nat will kill you. I was just waiting for that shoe to drop. I was like, oh no, this is not gonna go well.
Well, that's part of the fun thing about the series is that the girls are all friends and some of the guys are enemies. And so it's kind of fun to play with that and have them all be at each other's throats while their women are trying to manage the whole situation. That's fun.
Yeah.
So,
and I like how Riley said it. She's like, we're family now, whether you like it or not. Like, we're all interconnected. And so get it sorted or we'll handle it for you,
Yeah, which is kind of how it is in real life. Like, you don't love all your relatives. You're like, okay, you should die and I don't like you. And, but you work it out and that's how it is. Yeah.
I think that I was like, as I was going through and I read a number, because I was leading up to, I'm a purist when I read, so I like everything in order and I like to read in a certain way. So when I went to your website, I was like, oh, we're going to get introduced to these characters here, but then they're going to get a spinoff. So I got to go all the way back to the beginning and start way back at the Bad Habits series. And I worked my way through so that I could have all the stories.
That's a lot of reading. Thank you. Thank you for your support.
She's like an author's like dream. Like she'll buy all the formats. She'll start all the way from the beginning.
I love you. That's lovely.
No, but I was like, as I was reading, I was like, wow, JT, you really have an ability to like, I'm all in and I'm there. But at the same time, I wanted to throw the book across the room because I was like so mad at certain characters.
It's good though, when you're getting all sweaty and pissed off and you're just like, oh.
Especially like in the Wicked series, that's a whole completely. But with Victoria, I was like, oh my God, I want to strangle you.
This bitch. Yeah. 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 She was okay. So that series, just on a little side tangent, I had the idea for that book. I was standing in line at a grocery store and I was behind this couple and they were arguing. And the guy in the middle of it, he just stops and he says to her, "You are such a bitch." And she just stops and she looks at him. And she goes, "I'm not a bitch. I'm the bitch." And I was like, there's a book right there, right? Yeah. So I went home and I was like, okay, here's this woman who's a total bitch and she loves being a bitch and she teaches other women how to be a bitch. And that was Victoria. So
yeah, for sure. But no, but I mean, it's really true. Like if you are like a purist reader, like I am, if you want to get the backstory of Killian or Declan, or like to work your way up about how the Bratva and the Irish mafia are all interconnected, you know, like you gotta have that backstory. So I'm really glad that I did it.
And it's a little tricky too, because a lot of readers find me in the middle of the series. So then, you know, you can go back and read it, but I always think like you, that it's better to start from the beginning. And most of my books are sort of interconnected. You can read them as standalones, but like you said, there's all these characters that show up. And I never meant for that to happen initially. I didn't know that all these people were going to be showing up in all these other books, but they just did. And so now I'm kind of struggling, like, okay, there's who's doing what, you know, who's on first. But it's fun because people like to see, and they get these little Easter eggs in the books where like, oh, if you've read Wicked Sexy, you know this reference to this guy, where other people wouldn't. So yeah.
And especially like, for example, when, and I believe it was in the Dangerous Beauty series is where Killian first shows up.
Yes.
And like when I,
yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I love you, if I hate you. Well, actually, at first I hate you for what you did.
He was a bad guy.
Bad guy. And then
he did some bad things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did some bad things, but then it like sort of turned around and became something else. And to see how he's connected later on, you know, in the series is just, it's beautiful. It's poetic.
I feel like Killian is one of those characters who I will never get rid of, because he's showing up in this book a little bit too, in Brutal Vows, because he's just it. I don't know. I like him so much that he has a whole backstory with all of his different guys that are, you know, he's doing things with the 13 and what have you. So I'm like, he can always sort of make cameo appearances here and there. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
We'll get more of him for sure.
Yeah.
Once I finished the third book, I was like, I need spiders, but I need the fourth book right now. I'm like, burn the world. I was like, I love Sloane so much, but like having Sloane interact with her own sister, like, I could just have a book with these two just sitting in a room, roasting each other to shreds, and just them talking to each other. I'm like, I love your dynamic. It's like I feel like Nat couldn't like match Sloane's snarkiness, but Riley's like, okay, let's do this.
People, right? They're the same person basically. But I think you'll like the lead character in Brutal Vows because she's a badass. They call her the Black Widow. She has a lot of crazy stuff in her background, and she's very Sloane-like. And her and Spider go at it in the same sort of like hardcore banter way, where they're just slicing each other back and forth, which is a lot of fun to write, and it's a lot of fun as a reader to, you know, see all that stuff. So I think you'll like that.
I also appreciated, I believe that you did it in Savage Hearts, where Riley is going over like the lineage, not really the lineage, but the course of events. Like, so she's kind of setting it up about how Nat and Cage met. And then she's talking a little bit about what happened with Declan and Sloane and how he kidnapped her and like leading on down. So it's sort of like recapped everything. Are we going to get a little bit of a recap in this fourth book as well to kind of keep us connected to?
We'll get a little bit. I had to do that, and I call that an information dump, because for people who are just coming into the series on that book, I felt like there was going to be sort of a disconnect. Like, okay, who are all these? How do they know each other? So I just had to do a chapter where it was like, blah blah blah. This is what's happening. This is how they know each other. In the next book, in Brutal Vows, you will get something like that from Spider's point of view, because we left Spider at a point where he was really screwed up over the whole situation with Riley, and he was very bitter. And so for him to get into a situation with a new love interest, you have to be able to see at some point like where his mind was, and then for him to move past that. And then I just discovered that like his backstory and all the things that have happened to him were so much worse than anybody else. So yeah, like really, really bad. So it kind of makes, once I wrote all that, I'm like, okay, it makes sense why he was such a nut job in Savage Hearts, why he did all the things that he did. Yeah, so now I know, and you'll know soon too. Yeah, so there's a little bit. I like to connect it a little bit. You know, you can't be too heavy-handed with it because new readers will just be like, I don't care. You know, what is all this about? Mm-hmm. But just a little bit, yeah. So we'll get some of that.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think we're done with? I felt like sort of Diego's story is left unfinished. Where are you with Diego? Because I think now he's back at the diner doing a short order.
He's a line cook, right?
I'm sorry?
A line cook.
He's a line cook now. And I think that's where we started off with him when we first were introduced to him over in the Beautifully Cruel series. So is his storyline done, or will we see more of him, or what's your thoughts, or is that TMI?
Diego, you know, to me, he was never like a main character. So the way that he came into power, I was like, God, how am I going to write this? Because to me, he was just like this adorable sort of sidekick character that was in love with the first book. And I mean, so he never really kind of presented himself to me as he was somebody who's going to get his own book. So yeah, I don't see him as, and Kieran's not going to get a book too. So I think Diego and Kieran are both going to be sort of living their best lives out to pasture. Sorry. Yeah. Because you really can't give everybody, because my side characters tend to take over, and it's like, I just don't want this world to get so huge that everybody's getting their book, you know?
True.
So yeah, I think I love Diego, but no, he's not going anywhere.
And that's interesting because I knew that Diego was a side character, but then when he took over, you know, the Irish Mafia, I was like, well, maybe he's becoming more than just a side character. And I had hopes for it. That's funny you mentioned Kieran, because I was like, for sure Kieran was going to become more, but he's going to stay off in my periphery, but that's okay.
Yeah, you know, and you know why? I think it's because Kieran is a well-adjusted human being.
Yes.
He's happy and he's a good guy and he's nice, and it's like, I don't know what I can do with you, Kieran. You're good the way you are, so I'm going to leave you alone.
So. Nothing to see here. Keep it moving.
Just like, great, and I love you, and I won't ruin your life, so we'll just move along. Yeah. Exactly.
I do have an embarrassing thought. I thought in Savage Hearts for like 1 second, I was like, is JT going to do a menage? Like, because I see a situation before Malik showed up. I was like, I could see Kieran, Spider, and Riley like having their own thing. I was like, no, that's. I'm like, I reread two reverse parents. I was like,
my thing with my alphas, right, is that they're very possessive. They're not sharey. They don't like to share. The only time I did that was in I had a bridge novella in the Bad Habits series, Hot as Sin, and there was 2 band members that I decided were never going to get their own stories, but they needed to have a little fun to bridge it into the Dangerous Beauty series. So there was like a menage in there. But because right now I'm I'm very stuck on this whole idea of like the one true love. It's sort of my theme, right? It's hard for me. I think it would be easier with a female character, like reverse harem. It's hard for me to write a male character who's really in love, who will share. Because like in my own life, if that happened, I would be like, if you want to share with me, no.
Exactly. As soon as Malik came in the picture, I was like, oh no, sorry. That idea to just go somewhere and die. I was like, once Malik came into the picture, I was like, Riley gave me the vibes in the beginning, like the horror girl, like doesn't know that she was in a horror movie. Like she's thinking all the right things. I was like, a guy talk to you in the bathroom, and you're like, oh, that's nothing. Like, I'll just let it go. Like, oh, he came into my room. Oh, that's no big deal. Oh, that's no big deal. Okay, let's kiss him.
Maybe in the future, but no, not in this series. Yeah, the guys are all just way too like alpha male.
They're way too
territory. So yeah, no.
And it's funny, it's true, because I wrote because I take notes, and so on my hottest sin, I put Ethan and Chris. I was like, what's going on? Are we going to get more from them? That's the two guys that had.
Yeah, no. And you know, there are another 2 characters who, when I was writing the Bad Habits series, I never actually had a visual picture of those characters in my mind at all. I didn't know what they looked like, really. They were just sort of background noise. And so to me, if that character isn't interesting enough to me, I just, I'm not going to go there. And I have a lot of ideas and a lot of books that I want to write. So it's always like, okay, what's the next project? Because I'm I'm just ready for the next project. Yeah, I don't like to sit too long and simmer in one series. The first series that I ever did was a paranormal series, the Shadow's Edge, the Night Prowler series, and that was 6 books long, and I feel like that was the longest I'll ever go, and too long. So I don't know. I have a lot of standalone ideas, so it's like, yeah.
So having said that, how long do you think the Queen and Monster series will be? Do you think 4 is going to cap it?
That's it.
Yeah, 4. One more.
4 is it, I think. I get bored. I mean, I love all these characters, but at some point it's just, you're sort of starting to recycle the same storylines. And so it's almost better to start off with a new generation, like maybe their offspring or something where there's a crossover character that starts a new series. That's more interesting to me. And in the end, it has to be fun for me to write, or else I feel like it doesn't translate to the page where people are just reading it. Like, she must have been bored writing this because it's not exciting.
That's not the case in any like all of your series.
No,
Absolutely,
they're all 5 out of 5 stars.
Yeah.
Like, I love them all.
It's you, and I didn't even pay you to say that. That's amazing. Thank you.
I tell you, as soon as I met Sloane and Ruthless Creatures, I was like, I love her.
Yeah,
I love her. I love that character so much. And I love how strong these females are in this series. And it was like really like there was like a part in Savage Hearts where all the girls kind of came together and started talking. I was like, I could totally see Sloane just like controlling all the different mafias, and like Nat and Riley are her second in commands. I could totally see that happening.
Until you meet so in Brutal Vows, we're getting into the Cosa Nostra, which is the Italian mafia, because Spider is marrying into the Italian mafia. So then you have all of that side. And they're very strong too, because they've all grown up in the mafia, which is different than all the characters in the mob, and Nat and Sloane and stuff. They didn't grow up in it. So these ladies have a whole different sort of mindset about how life needs to be lived and how you have to survive in this very male-dominated environment, right? So, they're pretty badass.
I can't wait.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
It's gonna be fun. I can't wait to see what everybody thinks about it, because it's kind of the wrap up of the whole thing. So it's a little difficult because I have all these sort of story threads that are coming in there that I have to make sure that I tie up. But it's also an individual love story between, the 2 main characters. So that has to be the focus too. But it's been a lot of fun to write. It's gone pretty quickly because I know a lot of these people already. And so it's not like I'm trying to figure out who these characters are, except for with the main character, the female main character, but like all the other side characters are there and everything. So it's just a lot of fun to write.
And I like that I feel like you take it to the 9th hour. Like, I feel like I'm all the way through it. And then I'm like right at the tail end, like, especially like in Savage Hearts, I was like, is it going to get wrapped up? Are we going to get a cliffhanger? Like, what's happening? And like, I'm like, there's 10 minutes left in this audiobook. Like, are we going to get this resolved, or is it going to like leave me? So that like suspense that you take it, you really.
Well, it's good to have a little bit of something pulling you through, because otherwise you just be like fast forward.
Yeah, certainly not.
I was just like, that last chapter, I was like, hold on, let me slow down the audiobook. I need to catch every single word because I'm so interested.
So you guys both listen to the audiobooks, which is great. Okay, yeah. Doesn't Troy Duran and all the ladies do such a good job?
That's
it's amazing. Yeah.
Amazing.
I love that duet style narration. it's very, it's interesting and it's rich and it's fun to listen to. So when I first started doing audiobooks, it was just like, one person narrator reading all the characters. And I just think it's so much nicer to have several different people doing different voices and stuff. So I'm glad that you're enjoying that.
Yeah, it was a great experience. And I like that
audiobooks are amazing.
Because like there are like little sounds and like little things that like that they put in to make it sound like it's a recording or like whatever. So it's really cool.
Yeah. And that's an art. I mean, these people are actors, right, that are doing this. Narration is not just somebody reading words, because I couldn't do it, even though in my head I know what the inflections are supposed to be, and I'll give them some notes about what the character is thinking, but very little, and then they just kind of take it, and I listen to it and I'm like, well, that's actually better than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, it's better than I wrote it. Thank you.
I've always said that the narrator can either really make a series or
great character.
Yeah, so this was
my first series. I did not love the narrators at all, and it's really hard because it's very individual. You might like something that you don't like that I might, so it's all individual. But when I listen to it, because I wrote the words, I have something in my mind that the way it's supposed to kind of sound. And if it doesn't turn out that way, to me, it's just like, oh man.
Wow.
Yeah.
But all your audios, like even like from when I listened to the Dangerous Beauty trilogy, like all your audios, like I just remember them all being fantastic. I was like, dang, JT, I need to stay away.
I have
like,
never listened to that series on audio. That was
Really?
through my publisher Montlake, yeah. And that's the only series that I did that was actual cliffhangers, like true cliffhangers from book to book. You can't just pick that up on the second or third book. You got to read through the whole thing. And it was an experiment, and I don't know that I'll do that before, because a lot of people do not like that format. They're just at the end of the book, they're just like, okay, what did you just do to me? They want the ending, they want to wrap up. And so I don't think I'll do that again. So my books now are longer because you have to get the whole story arc in there. But
and that's interesting that you say that, because I sort of thought about this before, because like I said, I read The Bad Habits, The Wicked Games, Dangerous Beauty, Beautifully Cruel, and then The Queens and Monsters in preparation for this. And I was like, which are my favorite series of all of them? And really it's like Queen and Monsters and The Dangerous Beauty. I don't know, like I kind of go back and forth, and I love The Dangerous Beauty for like where you went with that it was like a captor-captive situation, that it ended on a cliffhanger, that there was espionage and like the Russian Rotfa and all of that. Like I absolutely loved it. So I don't know.
I liked that storyline a lot too, because that's the only series I've done where it's one couple that goes through 3 books. So I sort of got to expand on their experience and what was happening with them, as opposed to just one couple in each book. So everything is kind of an experiment, right? I just keep going on and like, okay, let's try this and let's try that and let's see what's fun and maybe what the readers like. The funny thing is, now that I've written the Queens and Monsters series, and people are going back and discovering Killian, that the Dangerous Beauty series, which is one of not my best-selling series, now has taken off because people are going back to that, which is kind of nice. So yeah, I'm grateful for that, and for Killian, because I just love him.
It's kind of interesting because I think, and this is just my take, I'm not a writer, but it seems that the trend is to have each book end on an HEA and each, be companion novels, if you will, with an interconnected story, right? So each book follows a different couple. And it's not as common where you've got, in a trilogy where each book focuses on that one couple, but it expands. Even after they kind of get together and have their HEA, they have other things that they're going through and have to navigate. And I kind of like that. Like it's a little bit of a change and a mix up from how we typically see it, which is each one ends on an HEA and it's a new couple and so on and so forth. So
yeah, some of my favorite series actually are one single couple through the whole series. I think it's a little harder to do because you really have to get people invested in that first book, or forget it, or else they call it decay, or else your readership just decays. The readers go away. So with the way that I'm writing them now, with a couple in each book, it's sort of an ensemble thing. So you're used to seeing all these other people and sort of like revisiting familiar faces. So there's a little bit of that familiarity, but I like it all. So, my next book is going to be a total standalone. I like standalones too, because people can just dive in there and cherry pick what they want to read. So the next one will be a total standalone, and that's going to be fun too, because that's going to be sort of a heart-wrenching story that will, when you read it, if you read it, you'll realize why there can be no continuation of the story. So, and I already know the story in my head. Normally I don't. Normally when I go into a book, it's like I know these couple characters and maybe what the conflict is. This book, same with Perfect Strangers, I know exactly what's going to happen, and I know how the ending is going to be, and I'm going to sit back and just turn my computer off when it's published, because I'm going to get people have very strong opinions about some of my endings, and I get like a flood of mail, like, how did you do, delete.
Shut out the world and
just like shut it out.
They like try to get it sorted.
Sometimes I just have to tell that story, right? Whether I think people are just gonna throw bricks at me or love it or not. It's just a story that needs to be told, and this one needs to be told. So yeah, that's up next. That's Pen Pal, coming out in August.
Ooh, exciting. And it's going to have an accompanying audiobook with it or simultaneously?
And it's going to come out simultaneously. I have Sebastian York and Andy Arndt on that one. So yeah, so that's going to be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing. So
they work frequently together and they work very well together. They, complement each other quite well. So that's going to be great.
And I've worked with him before on some of my previous novels, but not with Andy Arndt. And I really like her voice. I like her acting ability, and I like what she does. So I'm excited to see the two of them working together on my manuscript. So it's gonna be exciting. I can't wait.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Are there any other like subgenres within romance that you want to tackle? Because I know you have done so many different types. Are there any ones that you like are burning to get to?
Well, I think reverse harem is super interesting. I don't know if I could go there, but
I feel like you had the inklings until Malik showed up in Savage Hearts. So I was like, I could easily see this going that way. Riley has that energy.
I didn't even know this was a thing, reverse harem, until maybe this year, right? I had no idea. And then I read a couple of books and I was like, oh, this is super hot, right? Wow. And then I read a book recently called A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor, and it's fantasy, but it's historical erotica reverse harem. And I was like enamored with this book. I thought, this is so much fun, right? So maybe a lot of people ask me, are you going to do more paranormal? And I'm like, well, I could do, something like that. Because that would be like dragon shifters. I mean, I don't know what, but
you're like, I can go crazy with this if you really want me to.
Vampires are always fun, right? The bitey sex. And I don't know, all that stuff would be great. And I don't know if you guys ever watched the series Penny Dreadful. It's a couple years old, but I like, it's sort of like this London in the 1800s vibe. There's vampires and demons and witches, and there's something going back here with that. So I don't know, we'll see.
Little steampunk vibe kind of thrown in. Really cool.
I don't plan too far ahead because it takes the zest out of it for me. Like if I'm not one of these people who can sit down and plot out my next 5 years of books at all, because I'll just get completely bored with it. So I know what I'm going to do next up, and that's always it. So. But yeah, it's good to have these little kernels of juicy ideas that kind of simmer on the back burner, and then one morning I'll wake up and I'll go, I have to write this, whatever it is, and then I'll start that. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing! If we got like a Lady of Rooksgrave Manor from you, I would be like, I'm dead. I would like, JT ruined us all.
For sure, it's like, oh, I haven't done anything like this before. Really, I have very sort of different tastes in books. I read a lot of non-fiction, and so I don't read a lot of romance, but when I do, I like it to be something totally different than what I write, just to get, fresh stuff going in there. But yeah, we'll see. Who knows? I don't know.
We'll see what's to come. That'll be interesting.
That would be really interesting. I feel like monster romance is like paranormal, but like heightened. It's like pulling like all the creatures you've never heard of. I'm like, a spider, an octopus. I'm like, I like this.
Anne Rice did some of that too. She had some like crazy werewolf erotica, and then she had this beauty bound series. It was like a kind of a Cinderella retelling or something like that. It was all around. I mean, some amazing stuff. So I like it when authors can just go off and do some random tangent and you like it. Yeah. So we'll see. Who knows? I'll let you know when it happens.
I'll be eagerly waiting. I'm like, what's the next release? What's the next release? I need to know.
Hey, Charles, if you have ideas, just DM me and be like, what about this? And I'll be like, So.
Oh, no. You should. I had like a list of like things. I was like, okay, Queens and Monsters. I was like, I have so many different tangent ideas because I read too much dark romance and too many crazy, like high steam erotic romances. I'm seeing way more into this than what I should. I'd be like, okay, that could be a menage. Okay, that could be MMFF. That could be a FFO.
I see where your brain is. Okay, I see
where Charles is going.
I was like,
I think I need to write a book.
That Sloan could just be like a couple, and then they just say like, bye, Declan and Cage. I'm like, I was like, don't. I will lead you down a rabbit hole that no one wants to go down.
Oh my god! One day, all the guys just decide they're all going to get wasted and like have a sword contest. Charles is like, I'm down.
And everyone was like, what? Like, what is happening? I'm like, I'm living for this.
That could be really fun. Oh God, you got the wheels turning now.
So see, that's where Charles's mind goes, and I go to, like, I could totally see you writing a BDSM spice kink club, like, you know, with Dungeon Master, kind of, because I was like Daddy Declan, Alec, I could see them all like having their.
I sort of dipped my toe into that a little bit with Declan, and that was like, I didn't know that was going to happen either. Declan was just like, this is what we're doing. So I like that idea. And also I just read another book that was kind of like that. It was called Praise. Have you read that?
I've seen that one.
Okay.
Who's it by? Do you remember?
I don't, but it's like it's still in the top 10 on Amazon. Praise, and it's basically praise kink, and it's a girl who goes to work for her ex-boyfriend's father, who owns a sex club. And they get up to all kinds of fun antics, and it's really cute. And yeah, so something like that maybe too. I don't know. And I'm not sure if I should do this all under like different pen names, because I have so many random things that I like want to do.
Just lump it all into one.
Science fiction next. I don't know. We'll see.
I know. I totally could see, especially with the banter and the dynamics of how you write your female characters, but also the banter between the heroine and the hero. Like I totally see as like a really cool friend group connection in a sex club in a world that JT has created would be great.
I think it would be fun. I have to wrap my head around, like I told you before, the sharing aspect. It doesn't bother me like with a bunch of women sharing a guy. That doesn't bother me. But for some reason with me, a bunch of guys sharing one woman, it's hard for me to, so I have to, before I delve into that, I would sort of have to figure out, how does this work emotionally? Because at least for me as a person, and I know a lot of people in San Francisco. My brother lives there, and there's a whole certain lifestyle where you're very you communicate about this stuff, and it's very open and above board, and there's not a lot of emotional connection. You're doing it as a choice because this is what you like, right? For me, because I'm a romantic at heart, you know, so I always want that love thing. So it would probably have to be where somebody is they're in love, and somebody is discovering this certain aspect of their personality that the other person supports. That's probably how I would do it.
And I agree with you. And that's one of the things, and Charles and I have talked about this, and I've talked about this with other romance readers, why for me, reverse harems don't work so well for me. Because I like menages or thruples, because everybody has equal part. They are adding something to the relationship, and there is a dynamic of love, you know, that's going on there. Whereas reverse harem doesn't feel like that, especially as you're adding more and more partners on. It just doesn't have that love element or real connection.
And it makes it more juicy, sort of, you know, when you're not, because there's a line between really erotica and pornography. And to me, the line is emotion, that there's actually a connection. No matter what the people's choice in partners or what have you, they do have a real, genuine emotional connection. And I like to write about that. So I am interested in all of that. And you know, it's funny, this is kind of a weird thing, but my parents both died within the last few years. And once they were gone, because they would read my books, once they were gone, I felt this sort of freedom, like I could really start writing more, you know,
like sexy, steamy, spicy.
Like, woo, it's coming out. I'm just doing this, you know, because my dad would read my books and I would just be like, oh God, that's embarrassing. But yeah, so now I'm sort of in an exploratory phase, I think, in my career, where I've done a lot of stuff. This is my 29th book, Brutal Vows, that I will have published. So there's a lot of stuff back there. There's a lot of stuff still to be done. And I want to just keep growing artistically, which sounds sort of pretentious. But what I mean by that is I don't want to keep repeating the same thing because maybe it's been popular. I like to grow. I like to challenge myself and do new things because it's fun for me too. I just don't want to do the same thing for the rest of my life. I can't even imagine. Yeah. So we'll see where that all takes us. And so, you know, maybe in a year from now, Charles will be interviewing me and saying, God, this MMM romance is so hot, right? Maybe. I don't know.
But like the reason why I love the Queens and Monsters series so much and all your other works is like because you do build that emotional connection. And then when you do get to those steamy times, like it hits so much more like intimacy. Like there's some authors, like anytime they write steamy scenes, I'm like, why? I feel like my soul has been bared, like reading this scene, because I was like, it's so, you can tell the connection between these two characters.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, let's do it over here, or let's do it over here, because
and sometimes you're in the mood for that, right? Sometimes it doesn't have to be a very very emotional thing, and a lot of erotica writers do it extremely well, where they're just exploring that aspect of their personality, but there's something authentic about it, where you don't feel like it's just smutty. You feel like this is interesting, and I like watching these two people do their thing. Sierra Simone is one of those people for me. I love her erotica, but there is emotional connection, but it is, it's dirty. They're like on the altar at the church, and I'm like, whoa, girl, oh my God, what is happening? But that's hot, right? So there's all different layers where you can go clean, you can go spicy, you can go all over the place. But I'm at the point right now where I'm expanding sort of the stuff, my edges of it, and we'll see where that goes. It will never get to where it's just gratuitous, because I just, like I said, I'm a romantic, so there's a lot of that out there for people, and there's a lot of well-written erotica and quote unquote smut for people who are into that, and I read it sometimes too. But for me, what makes me happy as an author is writing stuff where there's like an emotional catharsis at the end, and you're happy that these two people have gone through all the shit and they've found each other and they're together. And that's what I'm all about.
And they deserve it. They worked for it and they got it.
I love a good third act breakup. Like that's like catnip. Like when an author, like, you do this well perfectly. Like when that third act conflict happens,
all is lost.
And like everything crystallizes, I'm like, oh man. So like this is why I love you, JT. Because I love a good third act.
Stakes, you want to have some kind of stakes, right? Like, why are these people fighting for it? And what are the things that are coming in between them? And that's what makes it interesting. Otherwise, you're just like, reading. That's nice,
I was like, okay, you broke up. Go date someone else. That's why I know when a romance has failed me. I'm like, go date someone else. I'm like, dang, I didn't even care if they stayed together.
So what's your favorite romance? Like what do you remember the book that got you into romance?
Oh, I feel like it was one of your books. No. That was one when I was first I think I just got KU and I was kind of discovering, and I think I found the Slow Burn series.
Okay.
And then I got hooked into that and I was like, oh, okay. Because I think I started out with like a J.S. Scott book, and it was like a little bit too spicy for me coming from like YA. At the time, I was like,
that's a big jump.
I was like, we could discover it. It's like, oh, a cop romance. I'm like, I don't know what that means. And I read it, I'm like, and then from I found Ella Frank, and I was like, okay, now I'm hooked.
Yeah. And I think for me, it would have been probably a Jennifer L. Armentrout book, one of her series, like one of her YA and, new adult kind of series that sort of bridged the gap and brought me over, I think, from YA.
Well, she's one of those writers she's a very smart writer, and she builds these incredible worlds. So you're not just reading a simple story, especially with like her fantasy and the YA stuff. You're reading this whole background of stuff. And I love writers like that. Laini Taylor is one of my favorite writers, who's a fantasy writer who just builds these huge, rich worlds. Right. And they bring you into it and you feel like you're there. I love that. So yeah, she's amazing.
And that's interesting that you say that, because that really speaks to how I am as a person and as a reader. And I think that's why most contemporary romance novels or contemporary novels don't work for me, because it's this conflict of misunderstanding, and I thought I saw something that I didn't see, and that doesn't work. Whereas I tend to go more towards either fantasy romance or dark romance when the conflict is real, because there's a trafficking situation, or we have to save the world and we're working together to kind of figure out this magical system. So there has to be a lot of depth to it for me to really be there. And I think you did that in a really simple and easy way for me to just dive in and just go with it. So I loved it.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was learning as well, because there was one of the books, I think it was in Savage Hearts, where he needed to get, was it Savage Hearts, where he got shot and she was sewing him up, and she was doing, and she was like, well, what do I use? He's like,
they're all getting shot.
Was that the second book?
I think, did he get shot in Ruthless Creatures too? I think Cage got shot and she was
I
sewing.
think he did.
Yeah.
I think it was Cage.
And
And Riley got shot in Savage Heart.
he was like, you can use fishing line or dental floss. I was like, let me look that up. Is that true? Can you do that? Like it was just, I felt like there was like a lot of richness and depth to it. So.
Well, that's the great thing about Google. You can just like, okay, if someone needs to, I'm on Google all the time. Like, how can this really work? And obviously, I'm not a forensic pathologist or anything, but I like to try and add some kind of realistic stuff into there, so at least it's interesting for the reader to be like, oh wow, if I ever get shot, I can just whip out the dental floss.
And I think you did the same thing with in the Bad Habit series and the second book, Make Me Sin. I think that's with AJ, right? Where AJ had the synesthesia or synesthesia.
Yeah,
that was really cool, where he had a tumor that was on the brain and it was causing him to see music, for people who haven't read it, as colors, and he kind of saw it in out in space.
It's a real thing. So that was kind of fun research too. And AJ is one of those characters, and he's one of my favorite characters. And I'm staring at his book on the wall, right? He's above me. That is so fun to write because there's so many layers there. He's not just a bad guy, which I try not to make people just two-dimensional characters. There's reasons why people do things and why they're bad or good. And nobody is either bad or all good. There's all kinds of stuff in there. In fact, in the Dangerous Beauty series, I had a lot of readers who wanted the bad guy Soren to survive and be redeemed.
Ooh, that would be
Really?
Yeah, I had a lot of people saying, you can make this guy, and I'm like, no, he's a psychopath. Like, he's evil. They're like, you can make him, like, no, he's dead. Sorry.
All right. The stroke of a pen, you can do whatever you want. But I was just like, I don't see how, like, much like I was saying with Killian, like after I was like, I don't like you. I don't know how you can come back from what you've done. I was like, oh, but you did. Soren, no, I just can't. Like,
No,
that's
sorry.
Some
It's like a point where you can't redeem some characters.
No, yeah. And my thing is, like, I like to have bad guys who do good things or good guys who do bad things or whatever that is in there. It's a gray area, morally gray. I think that's going to be the title of my next series, morally gray. But I like those people because they're interesting, and and we all can maybe take the wrong turn, and who knows where you're going to end up. But hopefully, people can be redeemed in the end. So, yeah.
for sure.
Okay. I just hope Stavros doesn't get killed in the fourth book. I feel like he may. But I was like, I feel like he may. But I have a romance in mind for him.
Okay, let me just tell you this. I'm at 87%, I think, because I told you the book is gonna be finished this week and it's gonna get turned into the editor. He's not dead yet.
Like, I'll say that.
He's not dead yet. And I don't plan this stuff out. So it depends on, because all those little threads still have to get wrapped up. I have this list of all the stuff that has to get wrapped up, like in the last couple chapters. And a lot of times it just takes a couple conversations. It doesn't have to be a whole chapter of him dying or not. So we'll see.
I was so surprised because Stavros that I had in my mind in Ruthless Creatures and the Stavros that came out in Carnal Urges, I was like, wait.
Weirdo.
And then when she was on the plane with him and she's like, I'm just letting him do his thing. I was like, what thing is he doing? And then I was like, what is going I don't want to I don't want to spoil it for people, but
yeah. We all have our little weird things, don't we?
He was doing a lot. And I love when she came out, he's like, he's just done. I was like, will you go?
Oh God. And then Declan's like on the tarmac with the rocket launcher. I'm glad you guys think that's as funny as I do, because I literally sit here and I write this stuff and I'll cackle just like we're doing now. And my husband will be out in the other room like, you have mental problems. Like, who are you laughing at?
You're like, I got a whole host of people around me doing a lot of stuff.
That whole scene was hilarious. I was like, someone's like, calm down, Stavros. Like, he's not going to blow up the jet.
Oh, yeah. And, Sloan, nobody ruffles her feathers, right? She's just like, oh, just relax. He's not going to do anything.
It's like, just blow up the plane. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I love how, they kind of, nickname, Stavros as, a big man baby. He's like, I want Sloan.
We need to put a diaper on Stavros because that's his whole vibe. Yeah.
I was like, he tried to take on Declan. I was like, man, I'm like, sorry, dude. I'm like, You
Go sit
tried.
down, sir.
I was like, go sit down somewhere. Sloan would like eat you up and like spit you out alive. I'm
Put
like,
your thumb in your
just go
mouth
sit-
and be quiet. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, poor Stavros. I was like, I hope he survives. But I was like, I don't think he. I was like, if he does, I'm like, you had a good run.
I will take that under consideration, Charles. So we'll see. We'll see. You'll find out.
And at 95%, Stavros died.
But in the acknowledgments, I'll be like, all it will say is like, sorry, Charles. Whoops.
I had to do it.
Like, oops, I had to do it. I was like, I couldn't read past 95%. Like Stavros is dead now.
You're gonna be tracking that Kindle, so you're gonna be looking at the like 98, 99. Oh, it's so funny.
It's just like the Instagram post. I'm like, Stavros is dead. I lost all hope.
That's it.
I'm like, that's it. 5 out of 5 stars, but like, I'm mad.
Oh, that's so funny. See, now you're telling me, don't put these things in my head, because now I'm thinking like, oh, well,
Hey,
what if
Kate just tried
Stavros
to
goes
kill a
off
lot
and
of
has this weird
people.
little like baby kink where he has like some new lady, you know, and he's like the baby.
That idea popped into my head. I wanted to piss at you. I was like, I can totally see that.
Oh.
I was like, hey, it's an idea.
Oh.
Get a dom female heroine, and like Stavros
this
is like,
what happens when your imagination runs away with you. It's like, I'm gonna have to write a book just for you. Just like, okay, Charles, here is your happy ending with Stavros. Everybody, I'm taking a year off because Charles needs this book.
Exactly.
I was like, I need it right now. I can't read anything else. Or I'll just be pitching you ideas.
I'm like sending him a new
this?
chapter a day. Oh god.
There you go. Yeah.
How can we started?
Within 5 minutes, I'll be like, okay, and then what happens? You're like, what? I just sent you that 5 minutes ago. I'm like, and yes, what happens next?
My notifications, bling, bling, bling. Like, Charles, no.
I had so many ideas. I was like, maybe I should not DM JT while I'm reading this, because I was like, I'm going crazy, like, because I read dark romance like Taji, and like I just go like immediately like to the craziest scenario. I'm like, let's run with that. Let's run with that.
I'm surprised that you were saying that, Charles, because normally it's me that's like going, I thought it was going to go this way with the menage, and you're like, oh my God, why are you always there? And this time it's you. I'm surprised because I didn't get that vibe with Riley, because I knew.
No, Riley was never there. You know, she was.
I was like, is Riley gonna just steal Declan away from Sloan? I can totally see that happening.
Oh, I would never do
just
that.
like
Sloan would just murder her. Riley would be dead. There's no. Yeah. She's like, sister or not, you're gone.
But you know what though? I did when Riley brought up the whole like you took my boyfriend, and like that Sloan like conveniently was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I thought that she was gonna do something, but then I was like, Riley's not that vindictive, so I'm not seeing that, like that she's not that type of person, nor would it fly in this kind of environment. So I kind of mixed that right away.
And Sloan literally has dated so many guys named Chris that she was like, I don't even know who you're talking about. There could be hundreds of these people. Who?
I was like, that could be the book, the 50 men that like Sloan rejected to get to Declan.
Sloan, yeah.
Like I dated Sloan for like 2 months, and then she just ghosted me.
Oh my God, that would actually be really funny. Like all these brokenhearted guys who are just like.
Like Sloan broke up with you too. Yep.
They have their own like little sad club.
We can create a website for them to like go and put on the message board about how she broke up with them.
And she'd be looking through the website like, I don't remember him.
Or she would be going, oh, you were pathetic. Oh, please. Like,
I know.
Commentary on, get over it.
Oh, so
I just love that sister dynamic so much. I enjoy reading those two like banter back and forth. I was like, I love these two.
Yeah, they're fun.
I was like, Riley, you should like slap Sloan for like dragging you into this. Like not telling like anything that's going on, but I was like, I
wanted to, but then she got Mal, so she was like, okay.
I'm good.
Yeah. I like it. I'll go live in the Russian countryside with my assassin and his crow.
And I love the little joke that you put that you had Sloan say like, "Oh, Stockholm syndrome runs in the family." I just lost it.
Yeah.
I was like, "Is this true?"
Yeah, it does.
People get captured and fell in love.
Because how could you not? I mean, come on. Yeah. Oh God. Okay.
Oh my goodness, I love that so
It's
much.
just a giggle fest tonight, isn't it? Wow.
It is good time.
I just love this series so much. Like the
thank
characters,
you.
the relationships,
I love hearing that.
and also the interconnected plot lines that connect the two books. I like how Cage is like, I would say like one of the biggest instigators, especially when it set out the hit on Declan. I was like, oh, I was like, this is interesting. Like
Cage
how
is
it
a
all has
character that
ripple
I sort of want to do something a little bit more with him because he's Bratva and the other ones are, well, this one at least and the second one are more of the Irish mob. There's a lot with Cage that could be done. So I'm not sure that's something that, you know, he's my dirty talking monster, you know, and I didn't know he was going to be that mouthy when he first showed up, but he was. And so now I get all these requests for people when they want me to sign, you know, that book, Ruthless Creatures, to have like a dirty quote from Cage. And I'm just like, I'm writing it going, oh my God.
You really want me to put this? Like, yes.
I do. And then they show it all over social media and I'm like, this is going to be my legacy. Like after I'm dead, there's going to be this quote going, take every inch of me, baby. I'm like, that's what I'm going to be known for. Right?
Oh my God. You're like, what have I created?
What have I done?
Yeah.
And before you started the series, did you already know how many books that you were going to do for the series, and you already had all that planned out, or you just kind of discovered it book after book?
Yeah, I'm a play it by ear kind of person. I kind of just go, I'm very intuitive. I go by my butt. My butt.
We tried. We did.
That was a Freudian slip. I go by my gut.
That is, you cannot write this stuff. That is awesome.
Charles, what have you done to me? I go by my gut. Yeah, so no, the answer to your question is no. I didn't know there was going to be 4 books. I just started writing that book, and I like to write these side characters that are very big, like Sloan. She was kind of like comic relief in the first book, but she sort of demanded her own book, and then from there, I just, you know, I kind of went from there. So I wasn't exactly sure. Most of my series, I like in my mind when I start something, I have a vague idea. Maybe it'll be 3 because 3 kind of seems like a good size. This series sold so well, and people seem to connect to the characters so well that I thought, okay, well, we'll take it a little bit more. But at 4 books now, I'm just like, this is enough. I can maybe do a spinoff down the road or something like that. So. No, I didn't know. I don't know anything. I don't know.
Hey, I feel like sometimes you just let the characters go.
Life.
And I think that the series is doing so well because it is a different spin on the mafia, whether it be the Bratva, whether it be the Irish mob, with the introduction of the 13 and the espionage and like that sort of political dealing, you know, like it brings another layer that's a really unique and different spin on how other authors are doing it. So that's why I think it makes it stand out, you know?
Well, I hope so. I don't read mafia romance, so I have no clue what other people are doing in their worlds. I know generally it tends to be dark, and I like to break up the darkness with humor. In fact, I can't stop making these jokes in these books, and some of my reviewers get really pissed. They're like, "Okay, it's mafia. It's not supposed to be funny," but I'm like, "But this is really funny." So I just throw those little things in there.
We need it, or we're all gonna be like,
I love the humor because like the humor lands so well.
I like funny people and I like funny situations. So you can have, I think the conversations can be funny, but you know, then you have the action and the drama with what's happening in the plot. So that helps it a little bit. The older I get, the more I just like funny shit. And I don't know, maybe I'll just end up writing comedy at some point, but I don't know. You need to laugh every once in a while, right?
Mhm.
Between the good sex and the murders.
No, it's true. I think it's is it Riley and Malik's conversation? And I like when he's like talking to her, and I think he's the one. He's like, "Are you crazy?" He's like, "Is there something wrong with it?" Because the way that like how she interprets and the lens, he's like, "No, really, there's something not right with you."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dynamic was
Yeah.
amazing. I was
Yeah.
laughing.
Yeah, he's like, you haven't asked to go home. She's like, would you take me? But that's, it was like those little moments where the characters have those interactions. I was like, I love it. It's like your
Because to me,
characters
that's like
are so well developed.
the real stuff in relationships, right? When you're having these weird little whatever it is, and it's it's kind of adorable, and it doesn't have to go on for a long time, but it just makes it a little more endearing, because like my husband and I will wake up in the middle of the night and we'll just start talking and laughing, and the stuff that he says, I'm like, oh, I gotta write that down. But yeah, he doesn't want me to put him in his book, in my book, so
Yeah.
get him in there every once in a while.
Just like one line of dialogue. He's like, didn't I say that to you? Like,
He doesn't
oh,
read
no,
my
did you?
book, so he doesn't know what's going on.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or like the same with between Sloane and Declan, like where Declan thinks he's in charge, and then all of a sudden he finds that his men are like falling at her feet, and all of a sudden, and then very quickly he's like, make no mistake about it. He's like, I might be ruling here, but it's all yours. It's all for you. So
I was like, we all live under the Sloane regime. I'm like,
Exactly. It's just
I was like-
Sloane's world.
I was like, we all just live in it. Like when she started taking over the men, I was like, she could actually just like take away the Irish mafia away from Declan, and Declan would not be able to do anything.
Right? She'd just be like, okay, we're all doing this now, and they go, okay.
Okay, like I go, we all love Sloane.
Yeah. So you're gonna like the heroine in Brutal Vows, because she's very much the same. She's a little more bitter, I would say, because Sloane is very happy-go-lucky, and Sloane has, she sort of created herself, and she has a very strong mindset of how she's going to be. And this new heroine has had a lot of crap happen to her, and so she's got a lot more armor. She's like more of a warrior, sort of, because she's lived in that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So for her to get together with Spider, who has all of these, he's got a lot of baggage, and you'll find out more about what is underlying the baggage that before came with Riley, and why he was so kind of distraught about that situation with her and Malik, beyond that he was infatuated with her. There's all kinds of other stuff that brought up for him. So you'll find out all about that. So it's kind of fun with these two new characters to see them navigate through all that stuff. So
it'll be interesting because I want to sort of make a parallel, because as I was reading Sloane's book, I sort of drew that conclusion that she's more happy-go-lucky and light and easy when I compared her to Wicked Beautiful with Victoria, where Victoria was bitter and powerful and like, you know what I mean? And like, and she did some things that I was just like, oh, you and I would be having words if that were me, and that like it wouldn't go over that easy. Yeah. And so it'd be interesting to see then when we go into this next book, like how those three heroines or main strong female characters relate are very different, because I did draw parallels or like threads between them of similarity, if that makes sense. So
it's very it was difficult for this new main character, whose name is Raina, because she has been brought up in a totally male dominated world. There is no she's an alpha female, but they're not allowed to be alpha, right? Because it's just in the Cosa Nostra, like the women don't even get to vote. You're in the home, you're having kids, you're married, you're not really true partners like the other couples have been. So there's an arranged marriage situation that she's trying to navigate with her niece that's supposed to be marrying Spider. Her very young niece, who is supposed to be marrying Spider. Yeah. Her 18-year-old niece. And so there's this whole situation of her really not liking any of that and trying to decide if she's going to allow this. Oh, I can't wait for you to read it. I don't want to tell you too much.
Yeah, no, because I want to go into it. I go into everything almost blind, and I don't blind anything.
Oh yeah, Taji will yell at me if I spoil anything. She like, da-da-da-da-da. I was like, I just told you the title. She's like, that's enough.
Like, it's the first line in the first page. I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to know.
And some people are crazy because they like to flip to the last chapter and read the ending before they start the book. And I'm like, you have mental problems. No, you can't do that. Like, it's terrible.
I was like, no.
Yeah. But some people like that because they feel insecure. They want to know that there's a happily ever after before they start the book, and then they can go back. So I get that. Yeah.
No,
that's I would just like search and see Stavros and death, and then I will go back to the beginning. And then I'll go into the beginning. I'm like,
maybe I just won't even put it in there at all, and you'll just have to wonder what happened.
I was like, don't do that.
That's so mean.
Maybe that'll be like the last line in the epilogue. You know how I like to do that? There's always something in the epilogue, and then ... and you're like, no.
I was like, thank you, JT. I will create my own fan fiction around this character.
That's what I was thinking, Charles. I'm like, you got to create. I can't wait to see what that fan fiction would look like.
Stavros universe. Oh,
yeah, it would be all kinds of crazy.
All kinds of foot fetishes.
I would have way too much fun with that character.
Yes, you would. Oh God. Well, he's a fun character.
And will Brutal Vows be simultaneous on audio too?
It was supposed to be, but I think I'm going to move it up. It was supposed to come out on June 1st, and I think I'm going to release it maybe late this month. So, yeah. If it comes back from the editor in time, which it should, I think I'm just going to move it up because it's almost done, except for Stavros. Yeah. So if I figure out what I'm going to do with him, then it will be moved up. Yeah. But either which way, the audio is going to come out in June, so it won't be that much after.
That's
and
amazing.
We do have Troy Duran returning is the Mafia voices, yeah. And I have two new ladies, plus the lady who voiced Sloane will also be in there because Sloane is in this book too.
So it could be multiple sort of POVs with narration.
There's only two main POVs. In Savage Hearts, there was like 3 or 4, because I just put a few of them in there. But this one, there's only 2. But there are characters coming in there who have conversations, so they'll get their own voices. Yeah.
Ooh. I can't wait. You should just do a surprise drop and just drop it next week, and I'll be gladly waiting on my Kindle, going like, okay. I'm like, don't talk to me for the next 24 hours. I'm kind of afraid
to do that. Like, I know authors do that, and it's just like, woo, I dropped it. And I'm like, will anyone read it? I feel like I need to tell everybody beforehand, but I don't know, maybe not. We'll see. Yeah. Depends on how much wine I've had before, Charles.
And if Stavros is still alive at the end,
yeah,
I'll just go like, is he alive? I'm like, no, JT, go rewrite it. He needs
what if I write like an alternate ending just for you? I could do like the last chapter. Like, if you want to hear Charles's ending, click here.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody else, just continue.
Just read the original ending.
Right. I love it. That way you can be in your own little world, Charles. Right.
A little secret link. Just a little secret, tiny little link, and Charles can be like, "Oh, that's for me," and go in there. Oh God!
We'll just have a video like how Stavros is a main character at all, and we all have been misled. He really is a mastermind.
Oh yeah. So maybe he's just in the plane sniffing Sloane's shoe, and this whole thing is like his dream. It's his fantasy. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that's something I would do. By the way, I would do that. No, I won't though.
I know I won't.
I won't.
Maybe I will.
Just so you know. I might, but I won't.
Okay. So I can read between the lines in this situation.
Yeah.
Oh, my face hurts from laughing. Oh,
Me too.
Oh,
so we have Pen Pal and Brutal Vows coming up from you this year. I wonder too. I know there's one book that you have, Rules of Engagement. I think is that one coming to audio too?
I don't know. People ask me about that all the time, and it's a cute book. It's a rom-com. It's very sweet. There's an aunt who speaks to the dead, and she's a matchmaker. I probably will because that seems like a book that should get put into audio because it's just fun. And also that book, I was going to do a series of 3 totally unrelated standalones, kind of like the Slow Burn series. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be Rules of Engagement, Laws of Attraction, where there's like a hippie boho student who's like in love with her very grumpy professor. And then there's going to be a third one with some attorney or something. I don't know. So yeah, we'll see. Unless I do other mafia stuff first. I don't know. We'll see what happens after Pen Pal. because Pen Pal is going to wreck me a little bit because I already know what's going to happen in that book. So after that book,
no.
I need something either very light or something completely different, or I'll just run away to Bora Bora and never be seen from again. We'll see.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. We will. All the romance readers will find you. We'll be like, has anyone found what JT is? Okay, she's here. Okay, now bombard her and get her to write more.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. So we have a ton of amazing books coming from you later this year, and also more audios potentially in the future.
Yes.
But Taji, any final questions before I wrap us up?
Not a final question, just one final thing that I wanted to say. And it's interesting because I usually don't read. I have two things I want to say. So first I want to say in the Bad Habits series, I absolutely, because I live in Los Angeles. And so when I was reading that series, I was like, oh my God, I am right here with you on Runyon Canyon. Like I felt very heard and recognized.
Oh, good.
You just really captured it well. And I was like, anybody who doesn't live in Los Angeles really got a nice feel of what it's like to live here. So I want to say kudos on that. So that was
Thank you. I grew up in LA, so I'm a Southern California girl. So all those places I visited, Greystone Manor and all those places in Hollywood and stuff, that was like my stomping ground. So that was my first series of writing contemporary after the fantasy stuff. So it was kind of a nice jumping off point for me to write something grounded in what I knew. So I'm glad you like that. Thank you.
Yeah, you did a great job. It was a great representation.
Great.
And the other piece of representation that I thought that you did, and again, I don't often read acknowledgments, but you put little nuggets in your acknowledgement section that I feel like lead you to know where you're either going or why you were doing what you did and what you were thinking about. And I loved I believe it was in the Beautifully Cruel series, I think it was the second book that you talked about. It was really difficult to write that book because you were in the midst of an ulcerative colitis flare-up. Mm-hmm. And that is a condition that I have that I don't often hear people talk about. The only time that I've ever heard any sort of public mention of that is in one of Chloe Lee's books. And I can't remember, I think it's like the third book in her series where she does a lot of disability representation, and the heroine in that particular book has ulcerative colitis. And I don't think that people know what it is and don't talk about it often. And they don't recognize what a toll that it takes, like, on you, because you're not able to eat and you're exhausted and fatigued. And so writing through a book and all the pressures that are associated with that is just phenomenal that you're able to do that in going through a difficult time in your life. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, because you didn't have to share that because it's quite a personal thing. And so I really appreciated that.
Thank you. Yeah, that was actually Beautifully Cruel when I was writing that. And my mom had died in November of 2019. And then the pandemic hit at the beginning of 2020. As I'm writing this book, right? So it was like a coronavirus lockdown. And there's like literally a toilet paper shortage everywhere. And I'm having this horrible ulcerative colitis flare. And it's, like you said, it's extremely debilitating. And you can't leave the house. I couldn't leave the house anyway. You can't eat, you lose weight. You're just, it's bad. But it was good for me to actually be creative during that time, to get my mind off of it, I think. And this is something that, I have lived with, and I will always be living with. But I don't know, in a way, to me, when I was first diagnosed, it was sort of traumatic, because it's like, this is not something you can ever get over. And, there's a lot of bad side effects and potential complications that can happen with this thing. But in a way, it made me more present and have more gratitude, and actually even more empathy for other people who are I don't know, either differently abled or not well or different from me or anything, just because you become more aware of your human condition, basically, right? You're not just so strong and healthy and I'm so robust anymore. And it's like, well, we all need to be a little bit kinder to each other, because everybody is struggling with something that you don't know what they're struggling with, whether it's illness or whatever it is in their family. So it was, I don't talk about it really ever, but I talked about it in that book, just because it was a weird situation with all these things that had happened. My mother died, and then this pandemic and I was at home and then I wrote this book, and that book was so successful. It sold like 1 million copies within the first 9 months. I mean, and part of that was because of the pandemic, and because everybody was at home, and it was just a weird time in everyone's life. And so, yeah, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but thank you for for acknowledging that. And yeah, it's a condition, that I don't know how I would write that in a book, because it's not romantic at all. So for somebody to have that condition in the book, I think would be really. I'm interested to read that book that you mentioned by that author, where the heroine has the condition, because I don't know how you would make that romantic or even palatable.
I know she did a great job with it, and when we go offline, I'll pull it up and tell you the names. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it's like one of those things where we talk about the various types of people that are differently abled, and we don't often talk about that particular condition. I never hear it, and so I attuned to it when I saw that, because it is debilitating, and it does change your life and make you make different decisions and different choices about what you eat and about where you go and what you do, and all of those things. And so it was very humanizing, and so I just really
thank you. And also the tough part about that is that there's a certain shame attached to it because of what the condition is, and so there's things that like people, there's a yuck factor that people don't want to talk about. So yeah, I don't know. One of the writers who I really admire, who does a lot of very sensitive dealing with topics, is Kennedy Ryan. She does a lot of she's very, and it's not like shoving it down your throat, but it's in there, and it's just like a lot of nice characterizations and making people aware. And so it's really good to, like you said, to see some of that somewhere. And so there's kind of a fine line between you're trying to entertain people and you're also trying not to be depressing.
No, it's true. It's true, because like you said, how do you make it sexy? Because it is, like romance novels, and we are talking about, romance elements and loves. And so how do you bring that in? And the series that it is the Bergman Brothers series.
Okay.
And it's the 4th book in the Bergman Brothers, and it's called Without You. And,
I will read that.
Yeah, and her condition is, and they talk about it, and it's interesting because the way she chooses to deal with it in the book is very different than, say, how I would, because I think when I'm in a flare-up, I'm paranoid to eat. And so like fasting becomes your friend in terms of, and timing and all of those kinds of things.
And then people are wondering, why aren't you eating? And you get all these very strange reactions from people. Yeah, that could be a whole thing too. Yeah.
So it's really, especially in a new relationship. And in this particular book, it's a new budding relationship that she's developing, and they have to have an open conversation, and then you have to share. And so it's just an interesting thing. So
it would actually be kind of nice if you saw a little bit more of that. And it doesn't have to be any kind of graphic depictions, but it could, because everybody has something, right? Whatever it is, whether you've got gas or I don't know what, ingrown toenails. If there was just a little bit of something in there where people could go, yeah, that's actually real, right? It adds a little layer of reality.
Yeah.
Okay, so Stavros now is going to have no. And that's why he's wearing the diaper.
Hey, I know of some kink books that like have that kind of like vibe to it, so like it can happen. It can happen. It can happen.
See, truth
that
is
hilarious,
right?
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Okay, on that note.
On that note, thank you so much, JT, for coming on my channel, coming on our book club. It's been amazing talking to you. If you guys haven't listened to these audiobooks, sorry that we spoiled all of them, but there's still amazing listens on audio, and I'll leave all of JT Geissinger's links down in the description box down below. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in a brand new video.
It was
Bye,
wonderful
everyone.
talking to you guys. Bye.